What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the FF Face-Off. I'm your host, Anthony Servino. Follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. Follow the show at the FF Face-Off and at fffaceoff.com. We can be found at all the top social media and podcast platforms. Today, we're going to take a look at my top 12 Dynasty Fantasy Football tight ends to help you dominate your fantasy football leagues. Remember, if you like anything in this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, the notification icon, so you can be notified anytime we are live to answer your questions or drop content just like this. Let's get right into it. Let's start with my number 12 tight end you should be drafting. And that's Darren Waller, new tight end of the New York Giants. And you can make a really strong case that Darren Waller is the number one wide receiver on the New York Giants. And I get it. The Giants brought in some wide receiver help. They also retained a lot of banged up help. Like outside of Isaiah Hodgins, who I actually really like, brought back Sterling Shepard, who's really going to be like that coach on the field. That dude can't stay healthy, but I do think it's a great addition to a young team. Or not a great addition, but a great retention for a young team. Wan'Dale Robinson, there's a chance he opens the year in the PUP list as well. The outstanding second-year player from last year's draft class. They bring in Jalen Hyatt. But Darren Waller is the one that jumps off the page. And I get it. Darren Waller's a little bit older. He's 30 years old. He's going to turn 31 this season, but we know he could make an impact when healthy. Once Darren Waller popped back in 2019, he's finished as a tight end 1 fantasy points per game in each of the past 4 seasons, and he did regress a little bit last year, but that was also his first year with Davante Adams. Davante Adams vacuumed up every possible target. Waller was also a little bit banged up, but the 3 previous years, 21 finished as a tight end 6, 2020 the tight end 2, and 2019 the tight end 5 in fantasy points per game. And those were teams where, yeah, Darren Waller was the best pass catcher on the offense, led by Derek Carr with the Raiders. Now we look at a very similar situation for Darren Waller and the New York Giants, where Waller is the best pass catcher, at least for now, on this football team. Not going to be a lot of volume, but there's going to be enough for a guy like Darren Waller to thrive. The only thing that's holding Darren Waller back is going to be injuries. If we can get a healthy season out of Darren Waller, he's going to return value, especially in dynasty formats. Now, depending on the direction of your dynasty team, like if you're building a dynasty team for the future, then maybe Waller's not the best choice for you. But if you're like me, I draft dynasty teams to win now and to win later. So getting a guy like Darren Waller who can finish as a top 5 fantasy tight end this year and possibly next year before he falls off a proverbial cliff, then getting him as a 12th tight end off the board is a big-time value. But if you're somebody, like a lot of people out there who want a young team, like, you know what, I don't want a 31-year-old tight end, then Darren Waller's not for you. But I love the value if you're constructing a team to win now and in the future. Let's go to my number 11 ranked tight end, and it is a rookie. And listen, I'm a little bit weird putting rookies this high, but it's the tight end position, and there's a lot of variance in the tight end position. But Michael Mayer went into this draft as arguably a number 1 or 2 ranked rookie tight end, although he was drafted as the 3rd tight end off the board. That was a big-time get for the Raiders. That was also a big-time get if you're a fantasy football manager, because he fell. He's also falling in the draft, in your fantasy drafts. Michael Mayer, he is taking over a Raiders tight end position vacated by Darren Waller. Foster Moreau is also no longer with the team, so the top 2 tight ends for the past few years for the Raiders are out of town. Michael Mayer is going to walk in as the opening day week 1 starter in a Josh McDaniels offense. Let me tell you something, people. There is value to be had in a Josh McDaniels offense at the tight end position. I know this narrative is beaten into the ground, but the Patriots are trying to replicate Rob Gronkowski, and Josh McDaniels wants to replicate Rob Gronkowski, and Gronk is a player you cannot replicate. But Michael Mayer, he can do a little bit of what Gronk did, just at a much lower level. Michael Mayer can run block. He's also versatile, where you can line him up all over the formation, in line and on the outside in the slot. He's a very good pass catcher, equally dominant run blocker, and he's really never going to come off the field for the Raiders. And here's a good thing. Jimmy Garoppolo, the new Raiders quarterback, a lot of experience throwing to top-end tight ends. Mr. George Kittle was his best friend for the 49ers. Now he has Michael Mayer. And we also have to consider, what is the future of Davante Adams in this offense? If the Raiders don't get off to a good start, there's a good chance Davante Adams is traded by the trade deadline. There's also a good chance Davante Adams is no longer on this team in 2024. He is not happy. He's been vocal about it the past few weeks, and I think that is something to pay attention to, because if Davante Adams gets out of town, then you got Jacoby Myers as your number 1 wide receiver, which means a guy like Mayer, if he translates, is going to be a big-time fantasy asset, because he's going to vacuum up targets. Number 10, we have another rookie tight end, and that is Sam LaPorta for the Detroit Lions. It is no secret, and it should have been no surprise, that the Detroit Lions targeted a tight end in the NFL draft. They traded TJ Hockenson away, and this was an offense that played really well last season. They were one of the best offenses in the league under Ben Johnson and Jared Goff, and I think that continues. And they move off of Hockenson. They don't skip a beat. A big reason why they moved off of Hockenson, not because Hockenson's a bad player, is because they have to pay TJ Hockenson. So why pay TJ Hockenson when we can trade him, get value, and then draft his heir apparent, Sam LaPorta, who's going to be on a rookie deal for the next 4 years? A great move by a Lions front office that's finally starting to do things correctly. Sam LaPorta probably going to open the day or open the season as the starter for the Detroit Lions. I know Lions, younger tight ends, they played okay last year once they moved off of Hockenson, but they would not have drafted Sam LaPorta in the second round without the intention of putting him on the football field to start right out of the gate. Dan Campbell, the head coach, was an NFL tight end. He's going to coach up Sam LaPorta and make him the best possible tight end for this offense. And look at Hockenson's target share last year before going to the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, there was an upward spike in Minnesota, but he still saw his fair share of opportunities for Detroit, and that could certainly spill over to Sam LaPorta. Absolutely love this get for the Lions and for your fantasy football team. Number 9, David Njoku, one of my favorite tight ends. Years ago, he was a first-round tight end in a draft that featured Evan Ingram in the first round and O.J. Howard in the first round. I get that Howard never panned out. It took a few years, but Njoku and Evan Ingram are both starting to turn the corner. Njoku last year, his best possible fantasy season since 2018. 2018, year 2 in the NFL, was the tight end 10 of fantasy points per game. Last year, the tight end 8 after a few disappointing seasons consecutively. David Njoku, second most targets of his career with 80 last year, career high receptions, second most receiving yards in his career, and ties a career high with 4 touchdowns. In fact, he's had 4 touchdowns in 4 different seasons of his 6-year NFL career. I love this offense. I think the Cleveland Browns offense is severely underrated this offseason. Njoku, we know he can play. Amari Cooper, we know he can play. They bring in Elijah Moore. Disappointing year last year, but he popped in his rookie campaign with the Jets 2 years ago. They also have Donovan Peoples-Jones, Nick Chubb, and of course, I expect a big-time positive regression from Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson plays like he played a few years ago before all off the field stuff happened, this offense is going to pop. And David Njoku is going to have a big role in this offense. Again, 80 targets in 14 games last year. Career best or second best numbers across the board. I'm all in on David Njoku for a breakout season in 2023. And I think he's going to be a big piece of your fantasy team in dynasty formats moving forward with this offense in Cleveland tied to Deshaun Watson. Let's go to my number 8 tight end, at Freiermuth. And the Steelers drafted a very popular tight end this year, Darnell Washington. Big body talent. Everybody loved him, thought he was going to go a lot earlier, but he did not. And Darnell Washington, folks, I don't want to burst your bubble. He's not going to cut into Pat Freiermuth's workload. Freiermuth is one of the best young tight ends in the NFL, a second-round pick from a few years ago. He's only 24 years old. And in back-to-back seasons in a lost Pittsburgh offense, Freiermuth tied in 12 in fantasy points per game last year, and then 2021, his rookie campaign, the tight end 16. He's also played in 16 of 17 games both seasons. What we have to note is that last season, Freiermuth had 98 targets in an offense he shared with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. 63 receptions, 732 yards. 11.6 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. Now, there was a touchdown regression. He went from 7 in his rookie campaign to 2 last year, but he also saw more targets and had a lot more receiving yards and a lot better yards per reception rate. I'm very bullish on the Pittsburgh offense. I love the direction that they're going with Kenny Pickett because Kenny Pickett improved as the season went on last year. And when we see that type of progression from a young quarterback, that only spills over into the following campaign and for the rest of his career. So I like this Freiermuth Pickett connection. I like the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're pretty set with Deontay and George Pickens, and Freiermuth's really going to be that number 3 guy in this offense in terms of pass-catching targets. Obviously, Najee in the running back room is going to be involved, but you don't give a tight end like Freiermuth 98 targets only to just stop. That was the 5th most targets last year. I don't know if he goes much further, like into the triple-digit target-wise, but I'm really comfortable saying that Freiermuth gets into that 85 to 95 target range year after year, barring any type of weird, odd regression. Freiermuth was also the number 3 tight end deep target, so Pickett liked going to Freiermuth with the deep ball last year. He also ran the 10th most routes, so when he's on the field, he's usually running a route. Where I would like to see improvement, Freiermuth only had 10 red zone targets, which was 15th at his position. So I would like to see some more red zone targets for Freiermuth so he can score more touchdowns, because we go back to 2021. Pat Freiermuth was a number 1 tight end in red zone targets. He had 20 and caught 13 of them. But he was only 36 in deep targets. And last year, it kind of flip-flopped where he had a lot more deep targets than red zone receptions. So if he can keep the deep targets where they are, and all of a sudden he's heavily involved in the red zone, we have a big-time fantasy threat on our hands with Pat Freiermuth. And again, he's only been in the league 2 years. You're drafting him to be your staple tight end for years to come. Let's go to my 7 tight end, and that's Dalton Kincaid, another rookie making my rankings, the final rookie. The best of the top 3 rookies in this draft class, in my opinion. Dalton Kincaid, what do we got to say here? He's tied to a Josh Allen offense. They drafted him to replicate what Travis Kelce is doing, and I get Travis Kelce's in a league of his own. But if there's anybody who they could deploy like a Travis Kelce in a similar format and a similar impact to an offense, it is Dalton Kincaid and his skill set. He also has a more than capable quarterback in Josh Allen. And opportunity-wise, I think the Bills' offense is a lot more comparable to Kansas City's offense than people think. You have the good tight end. You have the one good receiver, which Kansas City had with Tyreek Hill, and last year they downgraded, but it was really like the tight end, the big-time receiver, and then you spread the ball around. And if you look at Buffalo, that's what they're doing. You have the one really good receiver in Stephon Diggs. All the other receivers are complementary pieces. Now you finally have that big-time tight end to play the Kelce role, and then your running backs who will catch some passes and make some plays. But this is going to be an offense that's going to be funneled through Diggs and Dalton Kincaid. We also know that all off season long, we heard the reports and the rumors. The Bills do not want Josh Allen absorbing as many hits. They don't want him running as much. And they're holding true to this. They upgraded the interior offensive line. They brought in Latavius Murray and Damian Harris, two big short yardage backs, which suggests there's going to be fewer Josh Allen sneaks. Like, they don't want him to run as much. They want him to get rid of the ball faster so he doesn't get hurt, because we saw the wear and tear last season. So if he's getting rid of the football faster, that's only going to benefit the tight end and a guy like Dalton Kincaid with the short and intermediate routes. Kincaid, I get rookie tight ends are a little bit scary, especially taking him or taking them like he's going in the top 80. Could burn you, but it could also pay off big time. Dalton Kincaid is a rookie tight end I'm heavily in on because of the situation he is in and really, quite frankly, his skill set. Number 6, Dallas Goedert. You can't get any safer than Dallas Goedert. He is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Does everything right, big-bodied, runs good routes, and he can make plays. Now, Goedert last year, career high, tight end 5 in fantasy points per game. But he's, since 2019, he's always been a tight end 1 in that category. But last year, he popped. I've said this for years. If Dallas Goedert received Travis Kelce targets, he would be the tight end 1 year in and year out. He would be Kelce if he received Kelce targets. That's how good he is with the football. Metrics-wise, efficiency, across the board. You don't get better than Dallas Goedert. The only issue is he's on an offense that doesn't throw the ball a lot anyway. And he also has to share that offense that doesn't throw the ball a lot with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. The fact that Dallas Goedert only had 68 targets, 15th at his position, and still finished as a tight end 5 in fantasy points per game, that speaks to the talent that he is. And dynasty-wise, I would put him number 2. But I can't, because he has never received more than 87 targets, and that happened once in 2019. His target shares have dipped since then. 65, 76, and 68 last year. It's just the offense and the team he is on. But if there was ever a situation where Dallas Goedert receives 90 to 100 targets with Jalen Hurts, he's going to finish as a top 2 tight end. I'm all in on Dallas Goedert dynasty-wise. He is 28 years old, has a lot of wear and tear left on his tires. Let's go to number 5. That's George Kittle. And George Kittle, he's been volatile. But last year, tight end 2 in fantasy points per game. Year before that, tight end 4 in that category. Year before that, tight end 3. Year before that, tight end 1. Year before that, tight end 3. So Kittle is a top 3 fantasy football tight end when it comes to fantasy points per game, year in and year out. The issue is George Kittle has never played a full season outside of 2018 when it was still 16 games. Past 3 years, missed quite a few games, missed 8 in 2020, missed 3 in 21, and then 2 last year. So injuries are a concern with George Kittle, so is volatility. Like, he's not consistent. Kittle's the type of guy who's going to give you like 20, 25, and then he'll give you 5 the next week. So a lot of inconsistency here with George Kittle, but he's still one of the best fantasy tight ends, really one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Proves my point. Last year, Kittle opens the year with 3 straight games inside the single digits. Then he gets going, and then he drops off, gives you 21. Then a couple weeks later, 24, then 3 straight weeks in the single digits. Then he pops for 25 and 30, then 18. Then he closes the year with 7. So a lot of inconsistency here with George Kittle, but that's just the 49ers offense. Another low-volume passing attack system where it seems like one guy eats this week, another guy eats that week, and the running backs always eat in a Kyle Shanahan offense. All that being said, George Kittle's, it's hard to go wrong when you're getting Kittle as the 5th tight end off the board in your fantasy leagues. Let's go to my number 4, and my number 4 tight end's TJ Hockenson. And Hockenson popped last year, especially in the second half of the campaign with the Detroit Lions. Ends with a career high 120, or ends when he was traded to Minnesota. Ends the season with a career high 129 targets, 86 receptions, 914 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Career highs across the board, except with touchdowns, where he ties his previous career high of 6. In this Vikings offense, what do we know? Well, we know that the defense is atrocious. They're going to have to throw the ball to win. They're going to have to throw the ball when they're behind, and they're going to have to throw the ball in shootouts. So they're going to have to throw the damn football because the defense is so damn bad, they can't stop anybody. So when you're feeling that pressure, the foot is always on the gas. You need to throw. You need to score points. They bring in Addison, one of my favorite rookie wide receivers. You got Justin Jefferson, and you have Hockenson. This is going to be a deadly trio. But although there is 3, there is more than enough opportunity for all 3 to cash in for their fantasy managers because of the rate this team is going to throw the football. And we know that Hockenson, when he gets the opportunity. We saw it last year. Career high in targets translates to a career best in fantasy points per game. I have Hockenson ranked ahead of guys like Kittle and Goedert for the sheer fact that Kittle and Goedert are on low-volume passing attacks where you have Hockenson. They're going to throw it at a very, very high rate. And we know that Hockenson has the skill set to cash in. He is also only 25 years old. He's going to be 26 this season. He has a long time to play in the NFL, and I love the fact that he's attached to this Vikings offense, Kevin O'Connell and Kirk Cousins. And when you run on an offense with Jefferson and Addison, Hockenson's going to be a mismatch nightmare and really cash in on those mismatch opportunities. My number 3 tight end is Kytle Pitts. A lot of dynasty guys, they have Pitts ranked number 1. I don't get why you rank Pitts number 1. Like, I get it. He's only 22. He popped in his rookie year a little bit, tied at 11 fantasy points per game, but on this offense, still gave you over 1,000 yards. But last year, big-time regression, 10 games played, only 59 targets, 356 yards, 2 touchdowns. He only has 3 touchdowns in his 2-year NFL career. Although Kytle Pitts has generational talent, I don't know if he's on the team, on the offense, in the system to exploit his skill set. They drafted Bijan Robinson. They're going to run the hell out of the football. We know that there were a lot of cases last year where the Falcons were down 2 possessions and Arthur Smith still ran the football. That is the identity. That's what they're going to do, and that's what they are going to do with Bijan. You also have Drake London, who's going to be eating these targets up, and questionable quarterback play with Desmond Ridder. There's a lot of good about Kytle Pitts, but when it comes to translating that good on the football field, I need to see it before I trust it. Could I move Kyle Pitts below Hockenson? Yeah. Is it too reactionary to do so? Yeah. Which is why I have Pitts ranked as my number 3 guy. Maybe people think I'm nuts because, well, look how good he is. It's bound to happen. Is it really? Like, we haven't seen really talented players just never get over that hump because of their situation. I like Kyle Pitts, the player. I like the skill set. I love the talent. I don't love the situation. And before I can rank Kyle Pitts as my number 2 or 1 dynasty tight end or fantasy tight end or rank him anywhere above the elite, I need to see him translate better on the football field than what we've seen so far. Let's go to my number 2 tight end, and that's Travis Kelce, folks. I get it. Travis Kelce is the best in the business as a tight end, the best in the business in the NFL, the best in the business in fantasy football at his position. Last year, with no Tyreek Hill, Kelce gives us tight end 1 production and fantasy points per game. Year before that with Tyreek, tight end 2. Let's save it. Travis Kelce has been a tight end 2 or a tight end 1 of fantasy points per game every season since 2016. He's attached to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, as we know. But Travis Kelce is also entering his age 34 season. In the back of our heads, we have to worry about him falling off the proverbial cliff. It's a reality. Age will eventually catch up to Travis Kelce. However, if I was really that worried about his age, he wouldn't be my tight end 2. Maybe I'd have him ranked as my tight end 4 or 5. But the reality is, we have yet to see Travis Kelce slow down. Maybe he's like Tom Brady, right? Like, we see, like, Mercedes Lewis is ancient, and he still has a job in the NFL. Granted, he doesn't, he's not a production machine, but he plays for a long time. Jared Cook played for a really long time. There's a laundry list of tight ends who play close to 40. Maybe that's Travis Kelce. Maybe Kelce's the Brady of tight ends, and he just plays at a high level until he wants to stop. And until I see otherwise, I'm going to continue to draft Kelce as the number 1 or 2 tight end off the board, even in dynasty formats. There's no reason for me not to. And there's no reason for you to be worried. You take the shot. Because if Kelce continues to hit, you have a locked and loaded tight end 1 or tight end 2 in fantasy points per game. If this happens to be the year he falls off, and I don't think it is, then you set your team back a little bit. But the reward drastically outweighs the risk when it comes to drafting Travis Kelce, which means my number 1 tight end, Mark Andrews. And the reason why I have Mark Andrews ranked ahead of Kelce, well, number 1, he's younger, right? We know he's younger. Andrews is entering his 28th season. We also know that Mark Andrews, when he's healthy and Lamar Jackson is healthy, special things can happen. Even last year, with Lamar banged up and even Andrews missed some time, Mark Andrews was still the tight end 3 in fantasy points per game. Year before that, tight end 1. Year before that, tight end 4. Year before that, tight end 5. So we have another guy who perennially, for the past 4 years, finishes as a top 5 tight end in fantasy points per game. Tight end is a hard position to get right. So why not draft the guy? If you're drafting one early, get the guys you know are going to produce. If Lamar Jackson did not sign a long-term deal with the Ravens, there is no way I have Mark Andrews as a top tight end in my rankings. But because they have now re-signed Lamar Jackson and he'll be their quarterback for years to come, then naturally I'm ranking Mark Andrews as my number 1 tight end. And again, age plays a role here. This is where I do bump Kelce down 1 whole spot, because we have a tight end who has shown us he can produce at a high level, and he's going to be with the quarterback he has produced at a high level with for years to come. I also like the fact that Todd Monken is a new OC with the Ravens. Todd Monken's going to throw the football, and he's going to throw it to his tight end. So there's going to be even more opportunities in line for Mark Andrews. Love the future outlook for Mark Andrews, which is why I have him ranked as my number 1 dynasty tight end. All right, guys, this is another fantastic video. We'll be dropping more short-form content like this to mix up with our long-form podcast where we go live and answer all of your questions, reacting to the news and all of that fun stuff. Until next time, I'm Anthony Servino. This is the FF Face-Off. We'll see you next time.